Hello, you beautiful little marketing bees. You're tuned into episode 85 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello again, and welcome back to the Marketing Buzzword Podcast. This is the podcast that helps you to understand what all these business and marketing buzzwords actually mean and how they can be helpful or not going forward. I'm your host, Ben Roberts, and in this show, I'm the marketing bee in charge of making sure I can get on the right guests and ask the right questions to make sure that these words and phrases actually make sense. Now, in this episode, we're going to make sense of the term automation. And just like automated marketing. Really interesting topic, and I'm really excited to share this one with you. Before we do so, I need to remind you this podcast is powered by Talkative. Talkative is a company that brings together live web chat, web calling, video calling, and co-browsing together in one package embedded into your website. This allows you to offer a much more seamless customer service. It allows you to have international calls come in without any additional charges. It allows you to collect more data from your customers. So instead of just getting a single phone number and find out who they are, you actually get location data. You get tracking data through the website. And all this gets automatically saved into your CRM with transcripts and chat logs. This is the power of real-time communication. Find out more at talkative.uk. And one final thing before we get on to this week's guest, if you are enjoying the show, please do join the Marketing Worker Bees Facebook group and or leave a review on iTunes. That'd be really appreciative. Right, that's more enough about me. It's time to introduce this week's guest. Now, this week's expert buzzword bee is a woman called Jamie Slutsky. And Jamie is the host of the Tech of Business podcast and works as a virtual technology officer for entrepreneurs and small businesses. Jamie left her IT career in 2011 to pursue entrepreneurship and be at home with her daughters. She began with WordPress freelancing, and though this had many twists and turns, she expanded her toolset and balanced this with actual client needs. She doesn't believe in one-size-fits-all methods or all-in-one products, but in finding and implementing the best tools for the task at hand, and will continue to support the client or the product into the future. Jamie specializes in making online technology Jamie specializes in making online technology work so that it's her job, and so that her clients can spend time in their zone of genius and trust that the tech is going to support their business dreams. The solutions that Jamie develops for her clients are completely customized and integrated with the other tools that you use. She understands the principles of a solid tech stack and balances that with what her clients truly need. She's a really awesome person, so interesting, quite different from other people that I've interviewed. So I'm really excited about sharing this with you. So, that's more enough from me. Let's get on with the show. Hi Jamie, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Ben.
Oh no, the pleasure is absolutely all mine.
I'm delighted to be here.
So, Jamie, today, automation, that is the topic, that is the buzzword we're looking at. So let's get straight into it, Jamie. What is automation and how does it work for businesses before we get into we start diving really deep? Let's get a nice high level overview.
Absolutely. So automation is when you make computers do the work so you don't have to do it manually.
Boom. that is literally the most succinct of answers. Okay, so with that, I actually love that. I wasn't prepared for a succinct answer. Usually, people when they try and define things go on for a couple of minutes. I've usually can sit back for a bit. So on this end, so processes that machines can do instead of humans. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I guess the worry thing is that people say, okay, if I'm going to automate more stuff, it means less people. Now, if it means less people, it means as a company, as a brand, we are able to actually be less empathetic. We lose a certain connection with our customers because we then start becoming more generic. We start sounding a bit more machine-like. So what would be the sort of counter argument to that point of view?
My counter argument to that is quite simple, that automation helps you do the repetitive tasks, and it helps you highlight who you need to have a closer personal connection with. It's a tool. It's not a one and done kind of thing. So when we automate moving a subscriber from one place to another inside our back end system, from our CRM to our accounting software, that didn't do anything to the relationship. It was transactional. The relationship and the communication with that person is still done on a person-to-person basis. It's not done with the automation. Automation helps us. It doesn't replace us.
So we're looking at more of I can see that how that works from a back end perspective. So we're looking at sort of the CRMs, how we sort of save data in there, how someone has a transaction online, saves that data automatically into a CRM, makes a huge amount of sense. But then maybe where the lines start blurring is when we start automating email campaigns, and when we talk about, say, account-based marketing, where we're like, okay, someone's done this action, so now they get an automated email. They do this action, they get an automated email. What about in those situations where there is sort of that human connection, that should be that sort of relationship being built?
Right. And so that's actually one of my favorite places in automation to spend my time. And what it is not only are you adding in personal name information like their email address or their first name into that, and then it's just being cookie cutter. You can actually, depending on your email service provider, include certain snippets. Hey, I noticed that you clicked on this page, but you didn't purchase. Or I noticed that you were poking around on the website lately. Do you have any questions for me? You can use automation with back-end tools that can help you see what someone's actually doing, and so that you can start conversation. Automation really, really helps with that starting of conversation. I have in my systems, I use ActiveCampaign, and I actually have an automation that if someone has hit 3 different pages on my website, that it triggers an email to me, not to them. It triggers an email to me that says, hey, take a look at what this person's doing and reach out to them if you feel it's appropriate.
So how would you actually be able to reach out to them? What sort of data would you be able to collect that would allow you to reach out to them? Because if they just a website visitor, I mean, you look at things like the Google Analytics, how would you know? Or is it all dependent on actually someone having been potentially logged into your website?
Though this has to do with all those magic things called cookies and permissions. And one of the things that I have site tracking available to me. So I can actually see if someone has subscribed to my newsletter and given me permission, then I have a cookie on their site, on their browser, that allows me to see what else they've done on my website. So that's how it works. So if someone's anonymous, if someone has never opted in for anything, has never given me permission to put cookies on there, no, I cannot see that. But if it's someone who has opted into a freebie or bought a course or done whatever other type of thing, I can see what else they're doing. So it kind of takes that passive activity that they're doing and brings it more active into the forefront.
I absolutely love that. And I guess the idea of using the log on is, I guess courses is a great example, e-commerce business. When you're logged in, actually people have opted in to usually to give you that permission. So being able to put cookies on there, being able to do things like the retargeting, being able to do things like you're actually reaching out to these people because you can see that this person here has previously bought X course or X product, and if you sell a small set of products, okay, what's the next product? Okay, why they're looking at that? Then are they quite ready to buy? So you can reach out and go, oh, I see you've been. Would you reach out to them and say, I've been seeing that you've been looking at stuff, because that sounds sort of creepy. So I can see how it all works then with it all fitting together in terms of get that data set. So I guess the next step is, if you then want to personalize that and bring it back, how do you make automation not sound creepy?
Yeah, so that's why the automation that I have right now is just to send me an email so that I can decide what I'm going to do with this information. But some of the other things that you can do is you can have an automation that says, okay, if someone hit this particular sales page and didn't hit the thank you page for that purchase, you could then send them an email saying, "Hey, did you mean to purchase this? Were you on?" And you can even sometimes know if they're on their phone or on their tablet or on their desktop, because I know for me, I do a lot of browsing on my phone, but I do a lot of purchasing from my desktop. So, there could be something like that. And so you really just want to make it personal, make it a personal experience. And again, the key with the automation is to help identify the potential next step that someone's going to be taking, and not just cookie cutter. Hey, I noticed that you were looking at this. Why didn't you buy? That's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is we're saying, hey, I noticed that you're hanging around. Do you have any questions for me? And by posing it that way, you're inviting conversation, and it's not, doesn't feel salesy and, and like dirty.
Yeah, because I guess they don't necessarily have to know what the exact trigger is, and it's that, I guess, that bit of proactive customer service. So, for example, the business that I work in, we have a live chat product, and we have these different nudges that are set up on different aspects. There's different levels of automation where someone scrolls to a 60% of a page, a nudge would potentially come up, and the companies can set these sort of things. And it's that idea of that having that proactive customer service where you're not just waiting for hoping that someone's going to contact you. It's how can you remind them, because they may just not notice your little your chat button, your chat bot, your live chat. They may not be able to find certain things. So actually being a bit more proactive, I guess, it's one of those things when you go into a shop as well. Some shops you'll like to be able to just be left alone, and other ones you actually want that proactive customer service. I guess you've got to try and work out that balance of what your customers actually want.
Right, right. As soon as you were saying that, I'm thinking to myself, when I walk into a bookstore, I want to go and browse and look. I mean, bookstores are rare these days, but regardless, let's just go with it. But when you walk into a bookstore, you walk in, you're not saying, oh, I am going to buy a book, and you don't know what you're going to be looking for. You generally have a pretty good idea. Whereas if you're walking into a clothing store that's a mid to upper end clothing store, being greeted by someone when you walk in, and then, having that conversation with them, and then them circling back with you in 5 minutes while you're still in the store, that enhances the likelihood of you going and trying something on and possibly buying. So it's the same kind of thing in the online space. It's just that our interaction with that service provider or that product provider is different. It may be over the course of a week, we go back and we look at things again and again and again. And so that's where automation kind of comes in, is it helps to nudge people along, just like that salesperson in your clothing store.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to that idea that you said about it. There isn't a cookie cutter approach. There are so many different ways and areas. So of the business in which you want to sort of potentially look at automating. So if we look at this down like almost like a funnel approach then. So let's look at potentially some ideas on where different types of businesses and how they can actually use more automation. So let's look at sort of small to medium-sized businesses, for example. If we look at sort of the top level of a traditional marketing funnel, like we're trying to generate more awareness, what sort of ideas do you have, Jamie, that you could say to these small businesses, if we're moving down the funnel, these are the sort of bits of automation you can use to sort of generate some awareness. This is how you can create more information. This is how you can automate bits that convert people and then potentially retain people. How can you sort of talk us through some different areas of automation, or even break it down a bit further?
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest thing is that your automation can be in any number of spaces. You can do it within your email automation once someone has subscribed for your freebie. And so if we use that as our example, they've subscribed for a download of some kind, or they've subscribed to attend your webinar or things like that. If one of those is your trigger, then the next kind of step is to warm them up to who your business is, what your you're all about, who you serve, those kinds of things. And that one can be a very generic email. And so that's your traditional email marketing system. But then instead of sending them to the next and to the next and to the next in a chronological fashion, you can actually put in some logic so that if they opened the second email but not the first email, you can actually see that. You can send them to a third email. Or if they opened the first email but not the second email, you could send them to a different version of the email saying, hey, I noticed, not necessarily I noticed. That's not the terminology that I use.
Not being creepy again.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, I wanted to make sure that you knew about all these additional benefits that you can get from whatever it is. And so you can kind of reiterate email number 2 for them if they didn't get it. And then, and you can kind of continue down that path. And again, I mean, one of my favorite things to do in automation is to ask for feedback, ask for engagement, ask for replies. And by people clicking on buttons and doing different activities, when you're tracking it, you can then customize and make your automation really wide and really robust so that they can get their unique experience, at which point, if someone is opening every single one of your emails, they are going to be more likely to purchase something faster because they're on the accelerated track. So instead of if they open emails within an hour, let's just say for whatever reason, we're tracking them being that fast. Okay, if they open all of my emails within an hour of send, then I want to send them a purchase opportunity right away. If they take 2 or 3 days, I want to groom them a little bit longer and give them a couple more warming emails. And so while you are using automation, you're actually hitting them how they want to receive your information.
I like that, and the idea of fast tracking different people do different things. So again, it's not thinking linear about this. We must move them through a funnel. We must pick them here, then here, then here, then here. When actually some of them already go straight from A to C. They don't necessarily have to go through B. Some of them are different already. Each person, again, there's no cookie cutter approach.
Right. And I think that's the thing with automation is that when you start out with an automation, go ahead and create the linear funnel approach and then start watching how people are interacting. If all of a sudden you've got a huge drop-off rate between emails 3 and 4, then what are you going to do? You're going to revise email 3. You're going to enhance that experience. You're going to maybe use that as your branch point to create 2 different experiences. And then you watch again and you see that, okay, now things are flowing. People are going left and they're going right. And you notice that when people go left, that they tend to stop at this point and they tend to purchase this product or they tend to do whatever. So automation helps you just kind of have a good roadmap of where people are going and what they're doing. And you can always add additional steps, additional features and things like that. So, but the key with automation is to start.
Yeah. And what about sort of things then? Is this the same principle that would apply to other areas of automation that don't include email? Because obviously it's it's reasonably simple to understand actually the process from an email, subscribe, and actually how they move down there. But what other areas of the business that are maybe more customer facing that you could automate? And do they follow the same sort of process, or how would that work?
Okay, so, some of the other things that I like to automate are reminders for when somebody has purchased something, helping them to continue to move forward and to achieve the the result that they bought this thing for. If someone bought your online course and they stopped after module 2 or they, or whatever, and you started to see that they didn't advance, then, you can use automation. If you've got, your chat bots or your live widgets available, you could use those to pop things in. You can use automation to add alerts to their screen when they are logged into that system. You can Again, I mean, a lot of it tends to go back to email because that is our most reliable form of communication. But it's not to say that you can't still connect with them and meet them where they're at with something that they've purchased, not just in the onboarding or warming sequence. So you can definitely use it at that point. I also like to use automation as to help me with what I'm going to put out, or what my clients are going to put out on social media. So if we're using automation to gather, we can use it to gather data that we can then use in our social media campaigns.
I like that as well. Yeah, especially on social media as well. There's all sorts of things, I guess, like reminding people that that you put it on a chat bot onto your post where they comment, and then you'll be able to send them either information because they're opting in, or send them reminders that you're going to go live again, especially if you have like a regular Facebook live show or something like that, something you do regularly. These are the sort of ways in which you can automate, which actually is like, you don't need to necessarily have a human presence, but people want to have those touch points, but it's not necessarily a personal communication. I guess maybe that's where the people need to think a bit differently. Is yes, it's great that communication is human to human, but actually not every bit of communication is human to human, and it's actually trying to work out from your individual perspective, where do people actually want to have those conversations with you, and how do they want to have those conversations?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that, I mean, I said this right when you asked me the definition of automation. It's having a computer do something so that a person doesn't have to. So if you're watching and you're doing these things and you are noticing that you're answering certain questions 12 times a day or what have you, then that helps you maybe add the answers into your chat bot, so that you can then not have to answer that manually. And it's the same kind of thing with okay, I want to make sure that everyone finishes my course. So then you go ahead and you watch, like, on a weekly basis, you look and see who hasn't logged in. All of a sudden you realize, you know what, I don't need to log in and do this manually. I can set up an automation for that. So automation just really helps us push through and be more productive. I mean, if you have the right automations in place, you're not doing the tasks, the repetitive, unnecessary tasks. You're working at a higher vibration. You're working on the stuff that you can't automate.
Yeah. So this leads me on to something that I think is going to be really interesting, Jamie. Now, and this comes up to the argument of, should technology be clear and obvious, or should it be non-visible and non-intrusive? Now, this is the idea, I guess, of where, as far as I'm concerned, automation's only bad when it goes wrong. And it's trying to work out, should people always know that they are things are being automated, or should the people just assume that they're not being automated? So, for example, an example of this is the amount of LinkedIn messages I get. Now, the reason I've started noticing this on LinkedIn is because my name's Ben Roberts. It's really generic. So on my LinkedIn, my first name is Ben M, and then Roberts. So basically everywhere, if you search for me, Ben M Roberts, I come up, but Ben Roberts, just too generic. So I've started noticing this. I don't necessarily mind if someone had gone, "Hi Ben," blah, blah, and send me a reasonably generic message. I don't mind that too much. But it's when it's quite clearly poor automation, when they've gone, "Hi Ben M," I'm suddenly annoyed by it. I don't know why, but it's that thing going, I now know that it's automated, and so I'm annoyed that they definitely haven't taken the time. Whereas from the other perspective, I'm like, they might have done, but they may not have automated this. So how would you advise businesses to look at it from that perspective? Because for me, that was quite an obvious one, that they're automating, because I changed to Ben M Roberts, and it goes, "Hi Ben M," and like, no one in their right mind actually calls me Ben M. It's just, and so you know that there's a process that's gone wrong somewhere in there.
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, because the automation and knowing that something is being automated, it really depends on where it is. If it's in Facebook Messenger or in a chatbot on a website, sure, you expect that some part of that is going to be the bot itself and not the human. Whereas when it's somewhere that you're supposed to be and trying to make a personal connection, then it feels very inauthentic. And I think that the best way, if I were to do what you just talked about and use an automated system to send blast messages on LinkedIn, I would call it out. I'd say, "Hi, Ben M. Did you know I'm Jamie's bot? And I think that you were tagged as someone that she might be interested in connecting with," and make it over the top. And again, that's my personality and that's my business. That someone, like, if they read that, they would chuckle, but they would also understand, you know what, this was genuine. This was Jamie using a piece of technology to do one step of the process.
Yeah.
And it would feel less icky, I think, if you saw that. And you knew so obviously, because they called out that, that elephant in the room. They said, "Yes, I am using this automation."
And I'd be more, I still probably would, in all honesty, I still probably wouldn't reply. But I wouldn't be knocked off by this person that is quite clearly trying, because I don't know what it is. It's just, that thing is, they're automated, so you know that they've made zero effort. It's when it's one of those really awkward situations, I find.
Yeah, and I guess that's the piece that I think is the fallback of automation, is that it appears that you're doing less work. And so that's why automation has such a bad taste for so many people, is because people just, they abuse it. They don't use it with authenticity. They don't use it in the same way as they approach their personal conversations or their, or tasks that they assign to someone on their team. If someone on your team was logged into your LinkedIn account and they were responsible for sending 20 LinkedIn messages a day, those would be very personalized, but it would be a far better use of your time for them not to sit there and handcraft 20 messages. It would be a lot easier to send it through an automation. It's a really interesting one. I'm kind of thinking about, how would we get around that?
Yeah, I find it really interesting as well, because again, I know people have got a job to do, and actually, if you were to message every single person individually, it just would be complete waste of time. So I absolutely understand the idea of it. And again, this is where it's like, it's one of those things, I guess, it almost... the only reason it annoys me, potentially, is because it feels like it's lazy automation. Most automation, where actually it's been sort of tailored a little bit, but actually, it's like, it's a really difficult one. But I think, I don't know if there is an easy answer to it.
No, you know what? I don't think that there is an easy answer, but let me tell you something funny about those messages. I would rather see an automated message that was so blatantly and called out that it was automated than to see my name spelled wrong.
Absolutely. And these are the little things that you're like, I'd rather someone just come straight out with it, because it doesn't annoy me as much, because I know exactly what the deal is. It's when it's trying to be all sort of pally and friendly, and then it's just a bot. And that's the thing, when it's like, if you're on a chatbot, you want to know that someone's actually there, because I know people have got jobs to do. But yeah, it's an interesting. I think maybe I'm just the awkward one as well, where I've gone Ben M as my first name. I mean, if I hadn't done that, I probably wouldn't have noticed half these stuff, and everything would be right in the world still.
Yeah, but see, with my name the way it is, Jamie and Slutsky, there are no easy ways to spell it right. I mean, everybody spells it wrong, and I'm so used to that. So when I notice that someone sent me a message and it's spelled right, and it feels, even though it might have been a bot, but it feels like it's in alignment, I am less concerned. So I think that kind of brings us back to, like, when are you going to use automation? You're going to use automation when it feels right to you in your business. And every one of us who's listening, every one of us who is ever thinking about using automation is going to have different thresholds.
No, I absolutely like that. I really, really like that. So as we start to wrap this up, Jamie, I'm starting to think, okay, automation definitely has a place. Despite this last sort of 5 minutes where we've looked at actually where it goes wrong, but I think it's important, though, that we address some of these. As the idea of breaking down this buzzword is understanding that actually, just because automation is good, it doesn't mean it's all good. It's actually trying to find a balance between everything and try and break down where it works and where it doesn't. So, with that in mind, what sort of tools can people use to sort of help either identify areas of their business. So we'll do that as part A. What tools can they use to identify areas of their business in which to automate, or any tips you have around finding areas to automate? And B, what tools can you use to actually automate?
Yeah. So, well, the first one is kind of what I've alluded to already. Kind of think about the repetitive tasks. Think about the things that you want to do. Like, let's say that you want to see, okay, how often are people opening my emails? Who are my most loyal people who open my emails? Like, who opens them every week, every time? You want to know that. You're going to have to go and do a little bit of research. So that's where a good automation comes in, is that you can actually make the computers look this stuff up, because it's already online. It's already there. It doesn't need a human to do it. A human just needs to design the automation to do what you want it to. Other things that you can do that are, as far as automations and figuring out what to automate, is getting your systems integrated with each other. So your course delivery platform integrated with your email marketing platform, and so that you can then have the data all in one place. Like, I'd rather have the data in my email marketing and not have it both, in my email marketing and in my course delivery and in a couple other places. So finding ways to use one tool to consolidate everything.
Almost like a one tool to rule them all.
Well, one tool that brings everything together.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, it may end up just starting out as a Google Sheets workbook. I mean, it could be that you have automations set up to just pile information in there, so that you just have to go to that and use that as your dashboard. It could be, that could be what you decide to do, which kind of leads us into the second part of your question, which is, how do we actually get this stuff automated? And the first rule of thumb that I have is try to use as few tools as possible. I'm a tool gadget person all the way. If there is a native, which means a direct integration between whatever two tools you might want to be using, use that. If there are automations available inside whatever tool you're using, use that. And if that doesn't happen, then it's time to bring in your good old friend Zapier. Zapier is a website that helps all your different tools talk to each other. It helps it would be what I would use if I was creating that Google Sheet that would be able to bring in different things from different products. So it would be, that's another piece that you could definitely bring everything in through Zapier, so that it could sit on a Google Sheet or in ActiveCampaign or wherever you decide you want things to go. But automations, do them as natively as possible. Don't pull everything out of ActiveCampaign to have Zapier do it and then send it back to ActiveCampaign.
Yes. No, I agree with that. Again, it's almost like that case of keep it simple, stupid, isn't it? A KISS element. It's the idea of, if you can do it in that tool, do it with that tool. Don't try and overcomplicate the situation, because you try and overcomplicate it, it then starts breaking down. I mean, we see this a huge amount with chatbots, where people try and make these massive, big chatbots that do all these different things. It's like, do the smaller thing really well, and then you can add, once you've got that process, then you can add your next bit of automation. Then you can add your next bit of automation. Don't try and automate whole processes and whole things. It's trying to work out a plan, so a strategy going, these are the areas we want to automate. Okay, let's do X bit first, then we do B, A, B, C, D, and then you come up with an automation strategy, and then these are your individual elements around it. So you're not having to think of it as one massive automation task. It's actually how you can divide it up.
Absolutely. And I think that is a great example. It's the same thing as we were talking about with the email marketing, but automation can be anything. It doesn't have to be solely on your marketing side. It doesn't have to be solely on your integration with your users side. It can be making it so that your job every day when you get to your computer is easier. So sometimes the best automations are the internal automations and not the externally facing ones.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to make, actually, isn't it? It's actually how you can actually save your own internal time. So I guess someone manually processing invoices when it could be done through an invoicing tool, something like that, where it literally takes whole days worth of thing. It could be 12 days a year. It could be almost 24 days a year of just processing invoices. Imagine how much time we get. So we haven't got enough time in my business. Well, actually, how can you automate something that gives you that time back?
Right. I mean, that's something that I say about software and technology in general is that it is an assistant. It helps you with other things. All of us, we want to spend as much time as possible serving and doing the work. We don't want to spend our time doing the maintenance, and that's what a great place that automation comes in is in that maintenance side of things.
No, I absolutely love that. And thank you so much for your time today, Jamie. That's been absolutely mind-blowing. I've actually gone and done almost 1.5 A4 sheets worth of ideas and notes and stuff. And this is where I like to process it. And this is why I had literally no shortage of questions to ask about automation, because it's just one of those topics that there, once you start going down a rabbit hole, there's loads of other different bits you can pick up, and actually different whole areas you're good at. You can almost get lost in this world of automation. I find it absolutely fascinating.
I do too.
But it's one of those things I'm actually surprised about, because for me, I'm not natively a big fan of things like automation and chatbots. But when I look at actually the real benefits, and actually when you think about it from a real business perspective, actually how much can I use technology to actually improve me as a human marketer, it's actually incredible. And how much more I can do now by implementing these technologies and slight automation. So again, I use Google Data Studio as part of my reporting suite, and it'd be able to bring in all these things from my Google console. I can do all these things like that. It's stuff that actually, if I had to do all that manually, it would take me so long.
And you wouldn't do it, and your business wouldn't move forward.
And that is literally the crux of it, isn't it?
Busted.
Yeah. Oh, seriously, thanks so much for your time, Jamie. It's been an absolute pleasure. But
Okay.
oh yeah, you thought you were getting off scot-free then, didn't you? Right. Before I let you go, Jamie, I'm going to ask you the one question I ask everyone at the end of each of these podcasts. And that is, what other marketing buzzwords are you loving and hating right now, Jamie? What is really grinding your gears and making you go, no, please stop using this? And what's making you go, yes, I absolutely love this term. I'm using it all the time right now.
You know, it's really funny because I've had a love-hate relationship with the term funnel. I have had such a love-hate relationship with it. And so I could talk about it on either side. But right now I'm actually in a love relationship with funnel because of segmenting and augmenting and not making it a linear funnel, like we've been talking about. So I think that the term funnel, when people think of it as like, let's throw as much as possible in the top and hopefully we'll get enough out the bottom that it became worthwhile, that term I cannot stand. But when I think of a funnel more as a map, as a blueprint of something, of a journey that someone can go on, they come in like kind of like a maze. They, like a maze with multiple exits. They can come in at the same starting point, but they take their own twists and turns and they find their way to the right exit for them.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. Again, I like the idea because we use the funnel in work, but not to necessarily say our customers go from A to B to C to D. But it's to try and help us map our thought process, and then like a blueprint going, okay, this is the sort of stuff. If someone was looking at a product from an awareness point of view, they're looking for more information about our product. They're looking to actually potentially buy our product and compare us. What do we need to create at each of these different stages? Not going, they must do this and then do this and then do this. It's what are they sort of looking for, and how might they come across that sort of content, or how might they come into contact with it? So it's using it to guide, but not necessarily using it to actually funnel people down.
Right.
No,
totally.
I love that. And is there anything then else in there in terms of that you're hating right now? So funnel's now one that you're in a moment you're like yes, but is there anything there you're like, oh, I don't know if I don't like it, or is that the funnel again?
I think it really is both sides of that funnel coin. I also have had, love-hate relationships with using the term masterclass versus webinar and those kinds of things. I mean, a lot of people said, oh, well, webinar is old, so let's call it a masterclass. And I think they're two different terms altogether. I think that a masterclass better be 90% information, tiny bit of pitch, tiny bit of about you. Whereas a webinar, I think, has a much higher amount of expectation that there's going to be about you and a pitch involved. So I think using those terms interchangeably is a no-no. I think that because then, if you're using a masterclass, but you're really hosting a webinar where you're going to have a longer pitch, then it feels inauthentic. It feels sleazier. It feels, I think it kind of all goes back to the same things that we've been talking about, is just, I guess, using masterclass instead of webinar when you're not truly teaching the whole time.
I absolutely love that. I think it's one of those ones, isn't it, where you're looking at different power groups versus masterminds versus all these different things, just different ways of saying different things. But people when they start using it, they start interchangeably using the same terms or swapping terms over when they actually aren't doing that thing that the term was originally set out for. And I think that's a really, really interesting point of view, that no one's, in these 84 episodes, no one's come up with something like that yet. So you've done a first, Jamie.
Yay!
Oh, brilliant. Seriously, thanks so much for your time today, Jamie. I know I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone listening has as well. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ben. It's been a ton of fun.
Oh, great. Bye.
I work for a tech company, so I really, really understand the benefits of technology and the uses that it can bring. However, I'm always skeptical about all these ways in which you can automate. But when you actually drill down to what you can automate and whether you should or not, there's a huge amount you can and should automate over and above what we naturally assume. There are so many things that just take up either so much time or just actually are quite expensive to do manually, and actually by being able to automate these processes, you can actually spend more time working on your business and less time in your business. So I attended a conference called Atomicon a few months ago. When was it? It feels like months ago now. But essentially that was the idea of actually trying to break out those catch-22s of where you, instead of working in your business, you work on your business. You automate processes, you outsource processes. These little things like that will allow you to work more on your business in terms of expanding and growing and making sure you get on the right customers. So much to learn from this episode of Jamie. I hope you've learned stuff too. I'm really excited to be back next week with another guest episode. Goodbye.
This podcast is part of the You Are the Media Network.